All right, good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully, everybody had a good weekend. So go ahead and get your questions in there if you got them. Uh, you can enter your question. It's either going to be below the video if you're on a smaller screen, larger screen. It should be to the right of the video. So we'll start here with Dix W. So Dix W says, "I got shot in the elbow, left in Vietnam. To this day, it won't straighten 100%. My backswing it folds slightly. Feel like I lose club head speed because of it. There are no other lingering problems other than the folding. Any thoughts?" Well, I don't mind seeing a little bit of bend in your lead arm. That's completely fine. I wouldn't I wouldn't lose sleep over it. That's for sure. And from the sounds of it, it sounds like it's not something that you can physically change anyway, right? If you can't, if I imagine you probably have lost some strength in the lead arm, some functionality. It sounds like. I mean, I don't know, I don't know all the details, but it sounds to me like even if it was an issue, there's not much you can do about it, right? So you can only do what you're physically capable of doing. So you kind of just have to kind of work around certain things like that. So make sure that you're getting plenty of power from getting a good shoulder turn, right? From getting the club to lag behind, from using the ground properly. I just make sure that you're doing all of those things really well. But even so, you're saying that it folds slightly. I don't have any issue with that. A lot of the best ball strikers in the world have some slight fold in their lead arm. Jordan Spieth being one of them. He just won, yesterday. He's got some fold in his arm, completely fine. Works pretty well for him, right? Brooks Koepka, multiple major championships. Angel Cabrera, multiple major championships. Lee Westwood hasn't won a major championship, but definitely has been in the mix in a lot of them, right? Some fold in that lead arm. So it wouldn't be something that, I would pay too much attention to for sure. It's just as long as it's not excessive, right? And even like I said, if it's a physical thing, there's not much you can do about it. So David B says, "What putting drills do you recommend for players that too often leave them short?" Well, if you're leaving them short a lot, it comes down to one of two things. They're either not hitting it hard enough, which in that case, I would just try to make sure you're hitting it past the hole. That's what I would always err on that side. If you're leaving it short all the time, I'd be just trying to hit it past the hole. So just adjust your feel to get the desired result. But it could be from not hitting the putt solid or not putting the ball on a good roll, right? So drills for that, if you're not hitting the ball solid, if you're not hitting the ball in the center of the face, just like with putting in driving, or hitting any golf shot, we want to hit the ball in the center of the face, right? Unless you're kind of hitting some, weird shot or something where you're trying to hit the ball off the toe or off the heel. But generally, we're trying to hit the ball solid, right? So just like with the driver, with the iron, we want to hit the ball in the center of the face with the putter as well. So a really good drill to do for that is something called a gate drill. This is actually something that Tiger does before every single round that he plays. He does like a one-hand gate drill. So what the gate drill is you take two tees and you put them in the green just slightly wider than your putter, right? So that way you're getting feedback on whether. So if I have those tees set up, one on the toe and one on the heel, right, and I get my ball set up in between those, right? So the way you would do that, and you could also do this with a couple balls, right? So if I have a couple balls here, and I have one set up on the toe, one set up just outside my heel, and then I can put my object ball in here that I'd be trying to hit in the middle. I like to have the tees there because then, it's giving you instant feedback. You can set it up the same way every single time. You don't have to reset it up in case you hit it, right? Because odds are you probably will. So if you set it up like that, and now if I come in and I hit that outside ball, I know that I would have hit it off the heel. If I come in and I hit the inside ball, I know what I hit it off the toe. Ideally, I'd be able to swing through there and I would, not hit either one of those. And that would give me a center face strike, right? So that'd be one drill. The other one will be kind of looking how your ball rolls, right? So a way that you can look at that is by getting your camera out, your phone camera out, and use the slow motion video, and put a line on your ball like that. You don't have to; it just makes it a little bit easier to see. But set up the camera to the side, or have somebody hold the camera to the side there, looking at your ball close up, and see what happens when you hit it. Right. So see what's going on there. Right. And you can look at this to see if it's a heel on the toe strikes as well. But generally, if you set up that drill and you start hitting those tees or those balls, you're going to know right away. You don't need to get your camera out. But for this, we kind of do. I'll go over a way that you could see it without getting the camera out. But it's actually pretty cool to look at this on camera too. So use a slow motion on your camera. What you want to see is when you hit this ball, you want to see the ball get a little bit airborne, and you want to see that line not really do much of anything in the beginning, right? So we don't want to see this ball going down into the ground, because that means that you're hitting down on it. We want to get this ball up in the air slightly, and we don't want to see that line moving much. And then we want to see it getting rolling and rolling forward. We don't want to see this ball get too much up in the air and then see the line going backwards, right? Because then it's going to start skidding. We want to see this line get up in the air and stay almost kind of knuckle off the face, and then start tumbling forward and roll forward. That's what the best putters in the world do. So odds are, if you're leaving it short, you're either, if this is the reason why you're hitting it short, you're either hitting down on it and it's kind of bouncing right away, right? It's not getting lifted up out of there, because putters have loft on them, and they have loft on them because the ball needs to be lifted a little bit out of the air, because it is sitting in some grass, right? It's very short grass, but it still needs to get lifted up out of there. So typically putters are going to have somewhere around 4 degrees of loft or something like that. So, but if we get too much loft on it, then they start getting backspin, almost like if you hit a wedge and it gets backspin, and then it will skid, right? So we want to see that ball starting to roll. So if you're hitting down into it, you need to have less shaft lean, or feel like you're hitting up on it, right? If you're seeing you're getting backspin, right, then you need to get more shaft lean, so that way it's not getting lifted too much in the air. So that might be leaning the shaft forward a little bit more, or backward, and trying to hit that in a certain way. So didn't mean to hit you there. So that's the way that we want to work through it. All right. A way that you can do it without getting the camera out is to go on a day when there's still dew on the green. Go really early in the morning when there's still dew on the green. And what you want to see is, when you hit the ball, is you want to see it get lifted up out of there initially, and then to roll cleanly, right? If you see it bouncing a lot, then that's an indication that you're not going to know which way it is. So you're still probably going to need to get out the camera, but that's one way to do it. All right. So that's what I'd be looking at if you're struggling with that. But if it's just a matter of you're not getting it there, you're hitting it solid, you're rolling it good, then I would just try to hit it harder until you actually start hitting it too hard, and then you're essentially calibrated at that point. So I would just try to feel like you're hitting it more past the hole. Be more aggressive, with the putts, especially uphill putts. Downhill putts, may want to you're probably not having a hard time getting those there, I would imagine, but it's more being more aggressive with the flatter and uphill putts for sure. All right, so let's keep going here. So Robert K says, with Spieth ball striking coming together so well, what's the rehearsal move he's making, and for what swing fault might it apply to any mere mortals? All right, cool. Yeah. So from what I saw, the rehearsal is looking something like this. He's bringing it back, and then in his transition, as he's getting up to the top, he's really feeling that club go back behind. Now it's an exaggerated rehearsal, right? He's kind of going something crazy like this, and then he's getting that elbow out, and then in the start of the downswing, he's really tucking that elbow in and getting that club to really work back behind him. Now, when he takes his actual swing, he basically gets the club up like this, and then his transition, that club works nicely behind him. His transition looks a lot better now than it used to. What happened, especially with his driver, and this is part of the reason why he was so wild with his driver, why he wasn't the best driver of the ball, is that in his transition, he would get this club kind of going across the line, and he'd kind of keep it and pull it down a little bit, and it'd be steep. And what would happen is that he would come down steep, and then he would have to shallow it late. And when you do that, it's just a little bit harder to control. When you're playing at that level, it's really, really hard to control. So basically what he's doing is that rehearsal is a way for him to get the club shallowing a lot sooner in the start of the downswing. The sooner we can shallow it, the sooner we can get the club shallower in the downswing, the better. So we actually have a new course right now that's called the 20-minute shallowing fix, where Clay walks you through exactly what you need to do to get the club shallowing out. Most people that I see, especially recreational golfers, aren't getting the club to shallow at all. You see, Jordan Spieth was shallowing out the club before. He just wasn't doing it as soon as you would like to when you're playing at that level, right? But most people that I see aren't getting the club shallow at all, right? So they're getting this club and it's coming down steep the whole way, right? Now, better players, better recreational players, a lot of times they'll come down steep a little bit, like Jordan was doing, and then they'll kind of stand up out of it, right? So Jordan was kind of doing that to a pretty small extent. But like I said, when you play at that level, you can't have, you're not going to be able to stay at that level very long. So he's kind of working on more of an advanced part of shallowing, getting it to shallow earlier, right? Earlier in the transition. So what I would recommend for, the mere mortals or what you talked about, recreational golfers, is just getting the club to shallow at all. And that's working through the 20-minute distance fix course. So what I see most people struggling with when they're not getting the club shallow is they're not getting the face closed enough, or the face is too open. And when we do that, we naturally, just because that's just what our natural inclination is for most people, is to swing down steep. So let me explain. When you're coming down in the downswing, if this face is open when I'm coming down, right? So my lead wrist is cupped, or I have a very weak grip. If my wrist is kind of cupped coming down, what will happen is a lot of times people will swing steep into the left over the top, for right-handed golfer, to get the face closed, right? Because if I had this very open, and then I got the club, and I was doing maybe what Jordan Spieth is doing, where I'm getting the club to really, really shallow out. Well, look how open that face would be. I would hit the ball to the right, and then it would slice even more to the right. And your brain is very aware of that, right? Your brain, whether you're conscious of it or not, your brain is very aware that, if I leave the face open and I swing to the right, it's going to go way to the right. So what your brain does to compensate for that is it swings to the left. It swings steeply and swings to the left. So that way you can hit a functional shot. So the first step to getting the club to shallow out is you got to give yourself a reason to shallow it out, and that is to close the club face. So that's drill number 1 from the 20-minute shallowing fix. There's 3 total drills. Drill number 1 is to get the club to get the club face closed and actually get the ball to hook, right? Drill number 1 is to get that ball to hook, hit 10 hooks in a row. We don't care where it starts. We just want to make sure that we're getting the face closed, right? And I know that may seem like an easy thing to do, but once you get into it, you got to realize we got to find our proper grip, which makes it a lot easier. And then we have to use our proper wrist angles coming down, which also makes it a lot easier. So we learn those 2 things in drill number 1. Drill number 2, that's where we actually start to shallow. Now that we have a reason to shallow it out, now we can start working on getting the club shallowing out and swinging from the inside, right? So that's drill number 2, is now we're going to get the club face closed and we're going to shallow it out. So basically we get the ball to start to the right and then hook back to the left. And then drill number 3 is dialing that in, right? Dialing that in, because you're going to, hopefully by the time you get to that point, you can hit a big sling and hook, right? A big sling and hook that starts to the right and curves back to the left. And then once you're able to do that, now we can dial that in to find that nice draw, or even that power fade if that's what you want to hit. Now, generally, I do recommend most players do more of a draw. It's just a more powerful, swing. I mean, that's what Jordan hits, mostly draws. It's just a more powerful ball flight pattern. But But yeah, what Jordan's doing, long story short, what Jordan's doing is he's trying to get that club shallow as soon as he possibly can, because that's ideal, right? In the 20-minute shallowing fix, Clay talks about the cone of consistency. The sooner you can get that club head in the cone, the better. Well, Jordan originally, right, his club head wasn't getting in the cone as soon as he would like it to be, and now it's getting in there a lot sooner, and it's paying off for him. He's playing some pretty darn good golf right now. So if you want to just work on getting that club, that's the first step. Before you worry about getting it in the cone a lot sooner, we just need to get it in the cone in the first place, right? And the way that you do that is through the 20-minute shallowing fix. So if you want to check out this course, it's a course that we just came out with. It's included with your membership. All you have to do is click the instruction tab, then click the Top Speed Golf System, and then click the 20-minute shallowing fix. Get started on those drills. 3 drills. It's pretty quick. You could do the 3 drills in one range session if you wanted to. So get out there, do that, start shelling out the club, start hitting the ball a lot better. All right, let's keep going here. All right, so Shim C or something like that. Sorry, it's hard to tell. I'm not sure if it's Skim C or Shim C. But anyway, it says start the downswing. Why both knees towards outermost towards instead of just the left knee being a right-handed. Also, although I've been teased a bunch about the motorcycle move and not being able to click on the card or go to the description since I'm viewing via iPhone or my TV, it sure would be nice to see a description of the motorcycle move. So first of all, the motorcycle move, that's what the move is. So if you want to check that out, go to the move course and you can check out those videos. So click the instruction tab, Top Speed Golf System, then go to the move and check that out. As far as both knees over the toes, right? We don't want to go because it's not a very powerful thing just to go like this, right? Because you want to use, we want to get to the lead side and use both legs. So what you're talking about is going like, what we want to do is something more like this, right? When we're coming down. Whereas what you're saying is why not just go like this, right? Well, if you go like that, you're not. Think about this. If you were standing on top of a pickle jar and you were trying to twist the pickle jar, right? Would you just use one leg and go and try to go like that, or would you use both legs and try to twist it, right? That's why it's both, right? That's why we want to use both. Now we're putting more pressure into this leg because we're shifting weight into the lead side, right? But it's both that we're using there. All right, so Joe B214 says, when you're having trouble with too fast swing, how to get back to proper tempo. So a good drill that I like to do for people to kind of find their tempo that works for them, because there isn't just one tempo, right? You're gonna see all kinds of different tempo kind of swings. I actually saw a video of, I think it was Freddie Couples and Tony Finau, and their videos were playing at the same. They were both in slow motion, but they were at the same speed, right? And Tony Finau was actually at impact before Freddie Couples even started his downswing, right? So Freddie Couples, long, deliberate, slow kind of swing. Tony Finau, shorter, quicker kind of swing. Obviously, both play at an extremely high level, right? So both can work. You just have to find what works best for you. So whenever there's something like that where there's lots of ways to do something, what I recommend doing is going from one end of the spectrum to the other. So what I'd recommend doing is take whatever your 150 club is, and what I would do is I would go out to the range and I would take a full swing, but I would only hit the ball like 50 yards, right? That'd be a very slow, very, very deliberate, right? That'd be very slow and deliberate. Hit a few shots there, and then just keep adding 25 yards, go a little bit faster until you're trying to hit your 150-yard club, 175 yards. Somewhere in between there, you're going to find where your good tempo is. And I would stick with that. So you might find that quick tempo is works best, and you may find that a very slow, deliberate tempo works best. So you have to find what works best for you. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Go out to the range and swing very as slow as you possibly can, and then gradually work up to basically as fast as you possibly can. Then I would back off of it again to find where that happy medium is. All right, so Michael O says, hello, Q, working on 20-minute shallowing course. I said swallowing course, I assume shallowing. And notice I am hooking the ball more and not necessarily a draw. It starts on target line and going toward left. How can I fix it to start out to the right? So sounds like you've done drill number 1. You need to move on to drill number 2. So drill number 1 is to hook the ball, right? That's essentially what you're doing, it sounds like. So get 10 in a row where you're able to hook it. It doesn't matter where it starts. It's just the only goal of drill number 1 is to get that face closed, right? That's the focus. So you get that face closed. So you got to do that with a combination of finding your natural grip, which is going to be for most people, that's going to be a stronger grip, right? And then also using stronger wrist angles coming down. So we can't come down with these cupped wrist angle coming out. We got to get that lead wrist bowing as you're coming down. Now, I'm not saying you're going to need to bow it that much when we move through everything, but I want you to over exaggerate everything right now, because we can always ease off of stuff, right? So just over exaggerate, get it hooked, get 10 hooks in a row. You need to go, if you've done that already, then what you need to do now is go to drill number 2, where now that we are getting the club face closed, now we have a reason to shallow it out. You see, if the face was open before, you actually have a reason to do the opposite of shallowing, which is steepen the club. You have a reason to go like this. So now that we're getting the face closed, now I actually have a reason to get the club shallowing out and swing out to the right. So that's what we do in drill number 2, right? So you just need to go to drill number 2 from what it sounds like. And then once you get the ball starting to the right and then hooking, right, then you go to drill number 3. That's where you tone it down, where you get that stock shot, that nice stock draw. Or if you prefer, you may want to hit a fade. So you're doing the same thing when you hit a fade. You're still shallowing out the club. You just have the face more open. That's all. We still want to shallow out the club. We just want to have that face a little bit more open when we're shallowing out the club to get it to fade, right? That's the only difference. So go to the 20-minute shallowing fix. Click the instruction tab, Top Speed Golf System, 20-minute shallowing fix. Make sure that you've hit those 10 hooks in a row in drill number 1. If you have, then you go to drill number 2, where now you get the 10 balls in a row that start to the right and then hook back to the left. So Ray B says, I would like to know more about the triangle going back and going forward. Are there drills that I can use to learn more about the triangle? I just started keeping my arms straight and trying to do the triangle. Just need more tips. Ray, I'm not familiar with what triangle you're talking about. I don't know what. So one thing to keep in mind is that, a lot of instructors have their own proprietary things, right? So just like Top Speed Golf, we have our own proprietary terms and things like that. So, if you went to Butch Harmon and asked him about the straight line release, he probably wouldn't have any idea what you're talking about. This is that same kind of situation. I don't know what triangle you're talking about. So the key is that, if there's an instructor that is talking about something and it's most likely a proprietary term, you got to ask them, because I don't know what the triangle is or what it is you're working on. I wish I could help you. I just don't know what it is. So, as far as I'm concerned, as a Top Speed Golf instructor, there's 5 things that matter in the golf swing. You can throw in the shallowing as the 6th thing. All right. So we have a stable fluid spine. That's getting our spine angled away, right? And then retaining that as we go up to the top, and then increasing that as we come into impact, right? So that's number 1. Number 2 is a good shoulder turn. We want to get the shoulders turning, right? We want to get our shoulders turning back and then our shoulders turning through all the way to the full finish. That's the second most important thing, or that's the number 2 piece in the golf swing, the Toss golf system. Number 3 is creating some lag. We don't want to be casting the club from the very start of the swing. We want to get this club kind of lagging behind us as we're coming down. So that's number 3. Number 4 is going to be our compression line. Compression line is the line that goes from our lead ankle, lead hip, lead shoulder at impact. We want that to be in a nice straight line, just slightly angled away from the target. We can be a little bit more angled away from the target with the driver, but vertical to just slightly is where we want to be with irons. And we don't want to have our hip bumped out. So that wouldn't be a line, right? That would be more like a C, right? We want to have a nice straight line there between all these joints. And that's going to allow you to more easily make ball first contact and rotate through impact. All right. And then lastly is the straight line release, right? We want to get this club releasing out in front. If we release at the ball, we're going to tend to add loft. We're going to tend to have poor ground contact. We're going to tend to have poor face control, right? So that's the last piece that we work through. And then with that, we can also talk about the shallowing, right? We want to get this club shallowing out. So you can do all those pieces and still come down steep. So we want to make sure that we're getting this club shallowing out, working from the inside, so that way we can have more control of things. So those are the things that are most important in the golf swing. I don't know what the triangle is or how that fits into what that is. But I would ask the instructor from which you got the triangle thing from. L Mason 1 says, I've had an instructor tell me I stand too far away from the ball with my driver, yet my miss is off the heel and low. What do you think causes this miss? And what drills can I do to stand closer and still make center face contact? So I would say, it's hard to say without seeing your swing. But to know how far you should stand away from the ball, it's basically just going to be a little bit of flex in the knees, right? So basically just putting our kneecaps basically right over our toes or right in line, right on top of basically the balls of our feet, right? So if I drew a line straight down, it'd be right on the balls of my feet, right? And I'm going to bend for my waist. And I'm going to let my arms just kind of hang down. And then for the driver, I'm just gonna reach a little bit. So I'm gonna hang down until my hands are roughly, about a fist width in front of my legs. And then for my driver, I'm just gonna reach a little bit. And the reason for that is because the driver is so much longer than all the other clubs, right? This is a wedge. This is a driver, right? It's a whole grip length, or it's probably about a foot longer, right? So for a wedge, I'd have my hands kind of hanging straight down, from there. But for the driver, my hands are just going to be out a little bit farther away from me because it's so much longer, right? So that's basically where you want to be. So if your arms are really, really out away from you, really far out away from you like this, that doesn't mean that I can't hit the ball off the heel. I can still hit the ball off the heel from here, right? We're not robots, right? So it's not like you just set us up and you wind us up and we go. You can still very easily hit it off the heel. If there was a ball here and I was like this, I could jump out and swing out and miss it on the outside of it if I really wanted to, right? So I would just, if you're standing too far away from it, I would guess you're kind of like this, just way, probably too far bent over, hands too far out away from you. And you may be lunging at it, right, to get to it. So basically, if you just follow that, get a little bit of flex in your knees, have your hips nicely balanced over your ankles here. And then you're just going to hinge at the waist and let your arms kind of hang straight down. And then from there, you're just going to reach a little bit, right? And this would be kind of your driver setup, right? So you can see I'm just reaching just a little bit for that driver. My arms are just going out just a little bit. I'm not way out here and really, really bent over. I'm standing, I got my hips nicely, and I'm just reaching just a little bit for my driver, right? Now, as far as if you're hitting the ball off the heel, like I said, it's hard to say exactly what's causing that, but what I would recommend doing is just trying to hit the ball off the toe. Set up the way you normally would, and you can do this, if your instructor tells you you're standing too far away from it, I would trust that you're doing that. I would just ask why. That's the thing. Whenever you're getting a lesson or something like that, if you don't really understand what's going on, you got to keep asking why until you do. And if the instructor or whoever it is can't tell you why, then I'd probably find somebody else. They should be able to tell you why, right? So if why would this be bad? Well, it'd be hard to move properly from there, right? I would want you to have I would imagine this. Imagine if you were getting ready to field a ground ball, right? If you're getting ready to field a ground ball, you wouldn't be like this, right? You would have your hips over your ankles, right? So that way you can move properly, right? You would be in athletic position. So this is just a more athletic position. That's not to say that you can't hit great golf shots from here. It's just that you're going to more likely be better off being in more in an athletic position, right? And then I would set up, maybe, if work with your instructor to get you in a good setup position. And if you're still hitting it off the heel, then I would just try to hit the ball off the toe. Golf is a game of adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want, right? So if you're trying to hit the ball in the center of the face and you keep hitting it off the toe, then try to hit the ball off the heel, right? Or sorry, if you keep hitting the ball off the heel, then try to hit the ball off the toe, right? That's all it is. And then what will likely happen is you'll hit the ball in the center of the face, and you just keep doing that. You keep trying to hit the ball off the toe until you actually start hitting the ball off the toe. Because you're not going to have to. We're adaptable, right? We're human. We're adaptable. Like I said before, we're not these robots that we just set up and push a button and we go, right? We're human and we're adaptable. So what's going to end up happening is you'll probably need to feel like you're hitting it off the toe for a little while, but then eventually you're actually going to start hitting the ball off the toe, and your intention is going to match the reality, right? Feel becomes real. So at that point, you start trying to hit the ball in the center of the face again, right? So that's what I would recommend doing. Now, if you have trouble, you still have trouble, you try to hit the ball off of the toe and you still hit the ball off the heel, then what I would first try to do is exaggerate 10 times more, right? Maybe even feel like you're going to miss the golf ball, right? So meaning if I'm set up to it, right? And I'm set up to it the way I normally would. I'm not setting it up on the toe, right? I'm setting it up the way that I normally would in the center of the face. And then what I may actually need to feel, if I'm hitting the ball way off the heel, is I may need to feel like I'm coming in like this and I'm missing the golf ball. I know that seems weird to try to do something wrong to get something right, but that's what you need to do in the beginning stages, right? Now, once you actually, or if you still have trouble with that, there's a couple things that you can do. So one would be, if you imagine this pin as a tee, right? If you're struggling with heel strikes, what you can do is you can place a tee on the ground, and this would be a drill. You wouldn't be able to do this on the course. I guess you could if you weren't worried about playing by the rules or whatever. But in your practice, what you do is you place a tee on the ground on the inside of your ball, right? And now I'm going to set up to this ball, but I'm going to try to hit this pin or this tee. I wouldn't actually recommend hitting a pin. I just use the pen so that way you can see it more easily. But I would try to hit that pin or the tee in the center of the face. And what will likely happen is you'll hit the ball more in the center of the face, right? And if you still don't, I move it further away and adjust your feel to get the desired result. Then once you're able to do that, then take away the pin or the tee or whatever, right? And then you got to imagine like it's still there and do the same thing, right? And then you work through it until you actually start. The other way you can do it is with it like a head cover. Take a head cover, place it on the outside of the ball, right? And just on the outside of the ball. So that way, if you hit it in the center of the face, you would barely miss it. But if you hit it on the heel at all, you would hit it, right? So place it there and then hit shots where you're trying to avoid it, right? So everything we do in life is to seek comfort. It would be uncomfortable to hit that head cover, right? So you're going to be more likely to do it if you do that. And then once you're able to hit balls with the head cover there, take the head cover away, and then you got to imagine like the head cover is still there and hit balls, right? So those are a couple things you can try to do to help you get the ball in the center of the face off the heel. All right, so let's keep going. So Ray B says, I'm trying to keep my arms straight. I normally bend them and shorten my arms. Right, so the lead arm, I don't mind a little bit of bend getting in there, but we can't keep the trail arm straight, right? If I kept my arm straight, my swing would look like this, right? I have to fold my trail arm. I have to bend that trail arm to get the club up to the top. So the lead arm it can have some bend into it, but I would just focus on getting a good takeaway, getting a good wide takeaway, and turning your shoulders. Because what's likely going on is the reason why you're bending your arms is because you're not turning your shoulders. See, if I don't turn my shoulders, how do I get the club up to the top? I'm going to go like that, right? So if I turn my shoulders, I now have a reason to keep my arms from bending too much, right? I'm not going to want to go like this because if I turn my shoulders and I bend my arms, my swing gets too long, right? So I want to be more like that. But if you look there, my trail arm is bent, right? So that trail arm is going to fold and bend as you get to the top. But I would just feel like it's a little bit, you got a nice wide takeaway from the start of the backswing. And that's what we talk about in the Top Speed Golf system. That's the power turn course, getting a good shoulder turn. So I'd recommend going to level 1 of the or level 1 of the power turn course, specifically the wide takeaway drill. That's probably one that you would need to work on to get started with. So check that out. Click the instruction tab, Top Speed Golf System, power turn, and then level 1. You'll see the wide takeaway drill. That's what I recommend, Ray. So Janice K says, I find it easier to shallow if I stay more connected with my arms. Trail axilla tucked to my chest. Is this okay, or should I think higher hands in the backswing? So there's advantages and there's disadvantages, right? So I would need to see your swing to know for sure what exactly you're doing, but there's advantages and disadvantages to like what you're talking about is a flatter swing versus a more upright swing. So a more upright swing, you can tend to get a little bit more power from a more upright swing because you're creating more space to accelerate the club, right? So the more space, the higher my hands are, the more space I have to accelerate the club and create speed and hit the ball farther. But the downside to that is if your arms are really upright, right, it can be more difficult to shallow out the club. So I usually don't recommend people to have such high hands that it's too difficult for them to shallow out the club. If someone's already struggling coming down steep, I'm not going to try to get them to get more upright. So if you're really steep and you're really upright, I would probably try to get a little bit more flatter in the backswing, right? Because that's the advantage, right? If I'm flatter, right, then it's usually a little bit easier for me to shallow out the club. Now, if we get too flat, right, if we get like this, we get our arm below our shoulder plane, you're actually going to tend to steepen it because you tend to get stuck, and then you try to get the club back in front of you, and that actually makes you steepen it. So we want to make sure that our arm here is above the shoulder plane because that usually is going to keep you from getting stuck in trying to come over the top. So you got to find that happy medium that works best for you. I would much rather you got to find the happy medium of you're upright enough that you can get some good speed, but you're shallow enough or flat enough that you're able to shallow out the swing in the downswing, right? You can be successful doing either or. If you look like a Bubba Watson, very upright, and shallows the club nicely in the downswing. Hits the ball a mile, right? But if you look at like a Matt Kuchar, very flat, right? Shallows out the club nicely, doesn't hit the ball real far, right? And if you look at Bubba Watson and Matt Kuchar, they're both similarly built guys, right? They're both tall, lanky, skinny, not really strong looking guys. And one hits the ball really far and one doesn't, right? Bubba hits the ball a long way. So that's the advantage. So I would try to get your arms as high as you can while still being able to shallow out the club, right? So if you get your arms so upright that you can't shallow out the club, I would go more toward trying to shallow out the club. So Chuck M says, hello, Q. Can you talk about when you have an early arm to body connection and downswing on the shoulder plane? Should the ball be placed right of center for iron shots? All right, I got to read that again. Can you talk about when you have an early arm to body connection? So, I mean, at address, you're going to have some connection. I'm confused by your question. I don't know. Maybe if I know the reason why you're asking it, it might help. I don't know exactly what you want me to talk about. An early arm to body. At address, you have an early arm to body connection. I mean, you're not set up at address like this. I don't get the question. Sorry. And then on downswing on the shoulder plane, should the ball be placed right of center for iron shots? On the shoulder plane. Again, I don't. Chuck, I try to ask in a different way. I don't know what you're asking. So Rod F says, I'm hitting a nice high draw with sand wedge, gap wedge, 9-8, but with my 7-6-5 iron, I'm hitting low hooks. Any suggestions, even though you have not seen my swing? TSG golf videos have helped me a lot to get the into out swing path compared to before. I'd recommend working through that drill number 3 of the 20-minute shallowing fix, where you're dialing it in. Work through it with those clubs. Generally, with the lower lofted clubs that you have, the more they're going to curve. So you're most likely doing the same thing with those higher lofted clubs. It's just not curving as much because there's more loft, right? And the ball's not going as far. So my guess is you're doing the same thing. You just need to work through dialing it in drill number 3 from the 20-minute shallowing fix. So instruction tab at the top, top speed golf system, 20-minute shallowing fix. Go to drill number 3. Work through that with the with those lower lofted clubs to get it dialed in. So Ken P says, my driver club head speed is about 80. I have a TaylorMade M4D driver with a regular lightweight shaft, Mitsubishi Tensile CK50 red. I still can't seem to hit the drive consistently straight, and for sure can't draw it. Do you think a lightweight senior shaft like the Fujikura Atmos 5 help if I install it? I mean, you're already using a very lightweight shaft. I mean, 50 grams is pretty light. So I can't imagine. I don't know what the Atmos 5 is, but you're not going to get a shaft much lighter than 50. So I don't think that that's going to make you start hitting the ball more solid. What's likely happening is you're coming down steep. You mentioned that you can't hit a draw, probably coming down steep and across it. So what I'd recommend doing is working through the 20-minute shallowing fix, and then try to work through it with your driver. That's what I'd recommend doing. With the driver, we actually need to shallow out the club more because the ball is more forward in our stance, right? And a lot of people tend to compound the issue because when the ball is more forward, what they'll tend to do is they'll tend to face the ball, meaning their hips will kind of open up, the chest and everything will kind of open up. And when you do that, that makes you kind of want to come down more steep. So you need to be more aware of, okay, you probably need to feel like you're much more closed off at address and more behind the ball at address with the driver to make it more easy for you to shallow it out. So that's what I would recommend doing, is trying to get the club shallowed out and working from the inside. That's more than likely what you need to do. It's more than likely you could try using a different shaft, see if it makes a difference, but my money is that you're probably coming down steep, and it's more you, not the club. It's usually the case. And I say that because I'm speaking from experience. I've gone through these things as well. Like, my stupid club, that's the problem. But in reality, it's you adapt to the equipment, right? You just gotta, you more than likely need to work through the 20-minute shallowing fix. All right, so Don O says, where would I place a head cover or tee in relationship to the ball to help me swing more out to the right? I have the squaring of the club face down pretty good, but I struggle to consistently send the path to the right so that my draw starts right of the target, then draws into the target. So what I'd recommend doing, what I like is putting the head cover ahead of and to the inside, right? So about right there. So if this is my target line, right, I got this ahead and to the inside a little bit, right? So this would force me to swing from the inside. I'm not a huge fan of putting stuff behind the ball because that can interfere with the takeaway. I like to put it in front so that way you can take whatever takeaway you want, and then you can swing from the inside. Whatever takeaway helps you to hit the ball from the inside, that's what I want you to do, right? So if you put a head cover ahead of and to the left, right, just ahead of the ball, because that would force me to swing from the inside. If I even swung slightly on plane, I would hit this. I would try to have it so close enough to where there's no doubt I would have to swing so much from the inside, right, to be able to miss that, right? So that's what I'd recommend doing. And then once you get the ball starting to the right and hooking, then you can start easing off of this. You can start moving that a little bit away from the target line. So Larry L says, Q, I had great results with the 20-minute shallowing course, especially with the pitching wedge 987. But I'm really having a hard time. The 6 and 5 iron shots are thin, not getting much distance. Any suggestions? Sounds like you're not getting. You're probably hitting them fat. Not sure if you're hitting them off of a mat or not. But even if you're not, you're probably the low point of your swing is occurring before the ball. So when we swing more from the inside, right, that tends to make the club ground out a little bit sooner. And this also can be a reason why people come down steep, right? So if you come down steep, if you come down over the top, imagine this. Imagine I swung way steep and over the top, and I swung this club toward the third baseline, like right down the third baseline, in line with that. Where's my club going to bottom out? It's going to bottom out way in front, right? So if you're someone who struggles with chunks and thins, a lot of times what people will do is they'll actually swing a little bit over the top to get the ground contact to be more toward the target, right? So when we shallow it, imagine I swung down the first baseline, right? Where's my club going to bottom out? It's going to bottom out back here in front of my foot, in front of my trail foot. So what I have to do to compensate for that is I got to make sure that I'm getting a good weight shift to the lead side, and I'm trying to hit the ground more in front of the ball. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Focus on getting to your lead side. Try to get 100% of your weight on your lead foot at impact. So that way you can hit that ground more in front. Really focus on trying to hit the ground, 3 inches in front of the ball or something like that, and see what that does. Because more than likely what's happening is your club is coming down, and if you're hitting it thin, your club's coming down. It's probably bottoming out before the ball and then working up into the ball slightly and hitting it thin. All right, so Dennis Nagata says, when does the pressure shift occur on the downswing? Is it before the completion of the backswing? Good drill for this. So it's occurring in the last part of the backswing, right? So I'm actually maxing out my pressure in my trail leg around in this area of my backswing, and then it's starting to shift to my lead side as I get up to the top, and then it's continuing to increase as I come down in the downswing. So the best drill for this is the step drill. Start with your feet together, club in front, throw the club back, put pressure in the trail foot, throw the club back as you step forward, right? So that way you're getting the feeling of the pressure, your body, your momentum moving toward the target as you're in the last part of your backswing. There's several videos on the website where Clay demonstrates the step drill. Most notably is in the 20-minute distance fix, the sumo step drill. So if you want to check that out, because this is a key for getting distance, using the ground properly, shifting your pressure properly, shifting your weight. So if you want to check that out, click the instruction tab, then the 20-minute distance fix, then go to week 1, and you'll see it's drill number 2, the outdoor drill, sumo step, and Clay goes through the drill there. All right, so Don O says, on the shallowing fix, do you recommend learning with the lower lofted clubs first and working up toward the driver? Or should we learn it with the driver, and once you can do it with the driver, you can probably do it with any club? I recommend doing it with like a middle iron, and then mixing it up with different clubs once you're able to do it with the middle iron. So something like a 5, 6, 7, something like that, maybe even an 8 iron. For the most part, it doesn't really matter when you're initially going through it. Actually, I take that back. It does matter. You don't want to use a very high lofted clubs because you're just not going to get it to curve very much. So you want to use something that has some loft that you can get or that doesn't have a ton of loft, so that way you can get to curve. Right? There's a reason why you can slice the crap out of your driver, right? But your wedge, it would be hard to slice like that because of the loft difference. So I would recommend with an iron at first, middle iron of some sort, like a 7 iron, and then try it with other clubs as well. All right, so we got almost 10 minutes left. If we got some more questions. Ron C says, thank you for your time, Q. No problem, Ron. Glad to help. So Ron C says, what is your dog's name and how old is he, she? She is, her name is Hazel, and she is 8 years old. 8-year-old silver lab. So Ray B says, again, what is the order to do of your programs? So what I would do is there's basically three main programs that I would look at for the full swing. So it really just depends on what you're most interested in doing, or what you feel needs the most work, right? So if you are interested in distance, then I would recommend doing the 20-minute distance fix first. If you are interested in getting your ball flight more consistent, getting that nice stock shot, right, then I would recommend doing the 20-minute shallowing fix. If you are interested in just getting your overall swing to be where you want it, then I would recommend doing the top speed golf system. And then within the top speed golf system, there is an order, right? So there's the stable fluid spine, there's the power turn, lag, compression line, then the straight line release. That's the order what you want to go through. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to do every single one of those. A lot of you are already doing, some of those really well. So basically what I would recommend doing for the top speed golf system is I would get your swing on video, and then I would go to the introductory videos of each piece of the system, and I would watch them, so that way you can get an idea of what you're looking for, right? So I would look at your swing and see, okay, well, how am I doing on the stable fluid spine? Well, if you're good there, then you don't need to do it. It'd be redundant to do the stable fluid spine, right? So you would skip that, then go to the power turn. I'd look at your swing. Are you getting an adequate power turn? Are you getting at least a 90-degree shoulder turn? If you are, and you're also turning all the way through the ball, right, then you can skip the power turn, right? So, and then you look at the lag course. If you see that you're casting in the start of the downswing, then you need to work on the top speed lag course. If you see that you're already getting a good amount of lag, you don't really need to do the lag course. It's redundant. You don't need to do it, right? Compression line. If you're coming through and you're bumping your hips out, or too far angled away, or you're leaning way toward the target, right, then you need to work on the compression line course. If you're not doing those things, right, then you need or if you're not doing any of those things, then you're good to go, right? And then the straight line release. So typically, it's funny. I see lots. I get lots of. I do lots of online lessons, so I get lots of videos being sent to me and things like that. And usually, for a high handicap golfer, somebody that's 25 plus handicap, shoots lucky if they break 100. That person is maybe doing one piece of the system, like 0 to 1 pieces of the system, right? And then you go to like 18 to 25 would be, higher handicap, but still not like a beginner. That person is maybe doing 1 or 2 pieces of the system correctly, right? Doing 1 or 2 pieces decently. And then you get to where like the middle handicap range, right? The 12 to 16, 17, that person's doing 2 to 3 of the pieces. Okay. Right. And then you get down, as you can see, you get down to like, you keep going down and more pieces of the system are being done. All right. So if you're a scratch golfer, odds are you're probably doing most of the pieces of the system pretty well. You may just need to do like the level 3 piece of the system. Right. But if you're like a 15 handicap, there's probably, maybe 2 to 3 pieces of the system you're doing pretty well, and 3 you're not doing very well at all. 2 or 3 you're not doing very well at all. You need to work on those. And the order is stable fluid spine, power turn, lag, compression line, straight line release. So John R says, there's been a lot of wind. How do you control the trajectory of your shots? How do you hit a low shot? More shaft lean, right? So basically getting more shaft lean at contact. Now, that's easier than said than done. Most people struggle with getting shaft lean in the first place. So what I would say is if you're in that situation, like when I was in college, I struggled with getting shaft lean, and I really wasn't in a place where I could probably work on my swing, in season. It's tough to play a good golf and work on making big changes to your swing at the same time. So basically what I did is I learned to hit like 3/4 shots with more, with lower lofted clubs. So instead of, sometimes I'd hit a 5-iron from 150 yards, even though I could hit my 5-iron, 210, I would hit a 5-iron from 150 yards and not take a full swing. So that way I could bring it in there lower and have a little bit more control of it. So that's essentially what you got to do is you either have to de-loft the club by getting more shaft lean at impact. If you're able to do that, if you're able to flight it down doing that, great. But most people aren't able to do that, so you just need to use less loft. Use a lower lofted club and take a shorter swing, and let the loft of the club do the work, right? So that's one way to do it. Also, draws. Learn to if you hit fades at all, it's going to be difficult to play into the wind if you don't have a lot of club head speed, because if you hit into the wind and you hit kind of weak slicey fades, that wind's just going to eat that ball up. So learn to hit draws, and then learn to tone down those draws so that way they kind of pierce through the wind. All right, one more question here from Don O. Says, my short game stock shot when it's appropriate is the bump and run. But sometimes I wonder if there is a distance that comes too far from the green where it is better to do a little higher pitch shot. It'd be whatever distance it's something you kind of have to figure out by learning, right? Go to the practice area and hit shots from all different yardages, right? Hit some shots where you would hit like a bump and run type of shot from a certain distance, right? And then just keep getting farther away and hit a bump and run type shot, and then hit like a pitch type shot where you use a wedge and you get up in the air and you find where that is. I don't know where that is for you. It's different for everybody. And it's also different depending on where you play, right? If you play in Ireland where it's link style courses and it's really firm and you can kind of run everything up to the hole. Well, you get a bump and run from anywhere. We saw people at the Valero Texas Open hitting Texas wedges, right? They call that the putter from way off the green, right? That's a shot you can hit there, but you're not hitting that shot at Bay Hill, right? Because it's a different, it's Bermuda. The it's going to grab the ball, right? It's not an appropriate shot there. But in Texas, it is an appropriate shot for that course, right? So, that's kind of, you kind of have to figure that out on your own. It's not. I wish it was as cut as dry as, okay, you're this far away, you hit a wedge, this far away, you hit a bump and run shot. It's not. It doesn't really work that way. You have to kind of figure that out by going and playing. So the way you figure it out is just to do a good old fashioned experiment. Go in practice, hit a bump and run shot from a distance, hit a wedge shot, kind of a more up in the air kind of wedge shot, and see how you do. Keep track of how many it takes you to, or how close you get on those shots, and then that's going to explain to you, like, okay, well, if I'm this far away, I'm going to do this kind of shot. From this far away, I'm going to do that kind of shot, right? So that's what I'd recommend doing. All right. So thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow. Quick note: tomorrow, I have a clinic. We have a clinic tomorrow and Wednesday. So we'll actually be meeting later because I won't be able to do 11 o'clock. The clinic will be going on. So tomorrow and Wednesday will actually be 3 p.m. Eastern time start time. I don't know. I think we're trying to update the schedule if it hasn't been updated already. But yeah, if you plan on attending tomorrow or Wednesday's office hours, will be 3 p.m. Eastern time instead of 11 a.m. All right. So everybody have a great rest of your evening, and I will talk to you tomorrow at 3 p.m.